And with that, I think everything is in order. Welcome, everybody, to another laid-back hobby hang stream. We're painting something a little special, a little extra neat. A model that could be considered a Primarch. Very exciting. Here's how he's looking. I did my usual haphazard brush primer. Some spots are missed, but most of the areas I want to paint are fairly well covered. Trimari, welcome to the stream. Trimari says Lorgar really should get a transfigured / Demon Prince model. It makes sense since he was the first to fall to chaos that we know of. Indeed, Trimari, Lorgar is the first heretic after all. So now I need to do the reverse engineering of how I painted my word bearers. Fun stuff, to be sure. I believe I was using Mechrite Red, classic Mechrite Red mixed with maybe a little bit of Screamer Pink. We're going to give this Lorgar a little bit of a bespoke armor treatment. Probably going to be using this as our blend color to add, this Kislev Flesh as our color to mix in and add some value for our gradients, and then I'll be going over it with the usual word bearers custom wash. You'll have to excuse the it's going to be intermittent muting of the mic, guys. I'm having some springtime allergies, it seems. Okay, let's ease into the painting session. Let's get a little bit of brush primer going on those spots I missed. We're going to be painting a foot today. That's the plan. And actually, you know what? I'm going to remove the little accessories I magnetized because they'll probably just get in the way. Most probably just get in the way. I can probably put some of this on the sand as well, just to help lock everything in. Ten What 10? That model looks awesome. That's what 10 What 10 says. What model is that? This is Artel's... I have to remember the name. Suvarnael? Suvarnael. It definitely makes for an adequate, counts as Primarch, I think. A good model for the word bearers, indeed. It has a bunch of options. I've done a more thorough unboxing video on the channel, which was published earlier today, which gives you a rundown sort of the parts, and it's not an assembly video, but it gives you an idea of how the model is constructed. Any other areas I have missed? You know, the only thing about resin models is that they are heavier than plastic, so it does make me a little nervous when I'm tilting this guy upside down off this handle. Tramari says, believe me, painting a foot is more than I've done so far this year. I really need to schedule some time for myself to paint and build. My pile of shame is staring at me. Ooh, the pile of shame does stare back, that's for sure. That's for sure. You haven't even painted a foot this year, Tramari. You gotta get those numbers up. Those be rookie numbers, as they say. Okay, let's bust open the Mechrite Red. We'll have a blend of Mechrite Red, Kiss of Flesh, maybe Model Color Black. We're going to go all over the place. We're going to have a classic paint blending mess around. Let's jam with our brushes and try and get some nice values going. Maybe I should pull up a little bit of a reference for myself here. Let's see. Suvarnael, that's what this guy's called. Suvarnael. I actually really like the paint job they have of the model on the Artel web store. It's the same image I used in the thumbnail of my unboxing video. Just killer. I'm definitely going to be aiming for a similar sort of coloration, but I'll probably go with a darker hue to better match my word bearers. Oh, the paint is thin. But I guess you want thin coats, right? I think a wise man once said that. Something about keeping coats thin or wearing thin coats. Okay, let's just start filling in the ceramite color of this forward leg. Actually, towards the bottom we have some pooling of the primer, which probably should wait for. Probably would be wise to wait for that. I mean, on the sample model, they don't paint this red. They paint this little chevron here gold, but I think I want more armor color, personally. Isaac Nickel, welcome to the stream. Isaac says, what model is this? This is Artel W's Suvarnael, which they were kind enough to send to me for a little bit of an unbox and, I guess, painting project, painting streaming. I don't really plan to do a video just dedicated to start to finish. Here's how we paint it. I want to take my time with this model, enjoy it. It's a real treat of a sculpt. But this Suvarnael model really does make for a good Lorgar. I don't know if you guys feel the same. I feel like pretty accurate with that assessment. Probably want a bright spot here, then we'll go dark and dark. Oh yeah, Tramari says it's in the link. True. Yeah, well the link is just to their homepage, but the pinned link should take you to the homepage where right now Suvarnael is. I think the featured item, because he is the newest model of theirs. It's an interesting chest plate. Interesting chest plate Not too much going on. I do like the serrated sun style logo. I do think that is pretty neat. I can definitely get behind that. The Mechrite Red is on its way out. How fitting that we might end up finishing the Mechrite Red pot on our counts as Primarch here. How about that? It's almost like poetry. It's definitely a warm red, which I don't particularly love. So let's get some blends going. Tramari says, how in the world do I get ads in a live stream? Humanity was a mistake. That might be my settings over here, Tramari. Let's see what we can do about that. Let's see what we can do. I've been playing with monetization on streams on and off. I thought maybe if the streams have ads, YouTube is more likely to, you know, push it, so to say. Maybe it has more play with the algorithm. Here, let me change these settings. Maybe that will lighten the load. Oh, Jesus. Okay, I've mixed in a bit of Vallejo black in here with the Mechrite Red to see what that sort of yields for the gradient. Maybe that's a good range of color. I do want to be a little cautious around applying too many layers of paint around those sigils. They are rather small, high-res details, which I imagine could get clogged up by paint if you're not careful. What about this cape color? What about the cape color? Maybe we do like a gray cape in a reference to the old Word Bearer's armor color. That's an option. I think that's what Artel did on the sample paint job too. From what I can tell, yeah, looks like it. Looks like I'll be going with a gray cape. I think if I do anything, I would like to do a cool blue, because I'm a sucker for cool blues, but I feel like as soon as you have red Chaos Space Marine armor and you have cool blue accents, you just look immediately like Crimson Slaughter. I cannot separate those two colors from that faction. Francois, welcome to the stream. Okay, I'm gonna mix in a little bit of Kislev flesh. We're gonna get crazy. We're gonna get crazy. So that's kind of like as bright as I would imagine going. Francois says, do you have a Gengar tutorial? Yes, I do have a Gengar tutorial on the channel. Pretty sure I do. It definitely describes the colors used. I don't know if it does a demo on the dots, because the dots are a... well, that's like Catgut's thing. His coconut crab thing. So it might have been the case where I would have deemed it not being worthwhile to just demonstrate the same thing he demonstrates. I believe I might have linked to his video on with regards to the technique. But I think that video should answer your questions. Assassinator69, welcome to the stream. Excellent username. Assassinator says, love your word bearers detachment. Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot because I hate GW's word bearers detachment. Oh man, Packbound Zealots is such a whiff in my opinion. A big old disappointment. A big old bamboozle. A big old bamboozle of a detachment. Alright, so now we're looking a bit too pink, but we're gonna fine tune our colors. Assassinator69 says, would like an enhancement for Dark Apostle melee though, like dev wounds and damage 3 or extra attacks. Yeah, if I recall correctly, I think the word bearers had an old relic that did mortal wounds with a Crozius. Francois says the dots are what I'm after. There's a Catgut's coconut crab tutorial for that. Yes, I think I link to his tutorial in my video, but it should be easy enough to find just on a YouTube search, Francois. Assassinator says, thanks, I hate Packbound too. 9th was way better for us. Hell yes. Hell yes. Who would have thought? Who would have thought I'd be here lamenting for 9th edition? And here we are. You know, I should probably just work on one panel, one component of the armor, and then apply the wash and just see how everything looks. Just to get an evaluation, a little bit of feedback on the approach here. I think we want a sharp highlight on this edge. Not a sharp highlight, but our brighter color anyways. Our brighter color on the lip, and then we fade to our darker shades. Because it's all dark back here, right? Your cape's, it's behind the model, your cape's in the way. It is quite pink looking. I think that's sort of the natural result of Kislev plus, what is this called? Screamer pink. Screamer pink, but I'm hoping the wash brings us to where I want to be. So we'll try it on this thigh piece. This thigh piece. Francois says, I bought another armor cast Phantom Titan. I think the dots might make for some good patterning. Oh, that sounds like a good idea, like a decent idea, I think, Francois, right? The biggest challenge with giant titans is the amount of just open space. Right? Hence why so many people freehand on their titans. They almost need it. They need something to eat up that surface area. So the patterning might be a good way to go about it. Assassinator says, I also copied your Gengar color scheme for my NIDs. Your channel has been one of my favorite 40k channels since I've discovered it. Well, thank you, Assassinator. That means a lot. Always cool. Always tickled by hearing how people have incorporated and spread Hive Fleet Gengar through the hive mind. I think I was on Reddit earlier this week and I saw someone else do a floating Maliceptor as well. That was a little feather in my cap. We'll let that dry and maybe just apply a bit more Mechrite Red to the other parts of the armor in the meantime. Just tab over to our reference. I feel like I should water this down a little bit. The old Mechrite Red is, well, for one, it's old, so it's going on thicker than it otherwise would, or so I'd like to believe. And for two, the old base brand, or wait, this is not base, this is Foundation. Foundation became base type Citadel paints. So it's extra thick. And so to kind of counter that, I'm just gonna apply it with some extra water. And I think the watered down application of this this mech red actually looks pretty good for a base color. I don't hate the variation. You know, I've gotten some comments on a couple of videos about the new Bellicore detachment, this Shadow Legion, and how it's basically it's basically a Word Bearers detachment, but for a different faction, for demons, and that kind of amuses me quite a bit. Quite a bit. It's too bad you're so limited on the amount of Marines you can ally in. I think it's only 500 at the 2,000 point limit. Because I think that does hold it back a little bit as a Word Bearers detachment. Like I did a quick list. I did a quick little list build on New Recruit, looking at like 500 points of Word Bearers and seeing where you can go from there. But I think I'd like 1,000 points of Word Bearers. I don't think I want just 500. I know Word Bearers are all about working with the demons, but I'd like an even mix rather than a small minority of the army. As like just a quarter of the army being Chaos Space Marines. Francois says, I agree. It needs some kind of freehand or painting design element. So I'm thinking Black Avatar Galaxy, beta fish scale kind of patterning, also known as Gengar spots. Nice. I know what that means. The Gengar spots. I do have a little stuff, some Gengar stuff on the paint table here. Look, we got a Nero Tyrant. He's ready for spots. Nearly ready for the spotting. It's got the colors blocked in there. So I think he's gonna look pretty great once he gets his spots. And we also have the custom Lictor, or I guess custom Neuro Lictor. He's looking pretty cool. I want to do something else with his these top talons, but we'll see. We'll see. Kind of sitting on it. Sitting on the conversion just to kind of evaluate it, get a good sense of what's working, what's not. I find time really helps with the evaluation of a project. Assassinator says, I don't know why Word Bearers aren't more mainstream. They're my favorite Legion, not gonna lie. Maybe that's me though. Word Bearers suffer a little bit from the meme culture of 40k, I find. I find that to be more true than I would like. Okay, that's sort of the red wine look I want for the armor, I think. So maybe we will work within this range. Let's see how it dries, but I don't dislike that. It could be a bit darker though. It's tricky. Gotta think about the glowing runes. Everything's color balanced for the glowing runes. mean, as for word bearers being very cool, I think obviously they are cool. They are the first heretics. They are excellent bad guys. You want good villains in an IP. Crazy, right? They're also the only Chaos Space Marine Legion that really brands themselves as being down with the sickness with regards to demons, right? With regards to possession, all the real chaos elements of Chaos Space Marines, right? Many of the God-marked legions aside, the big four special snowflakes aside, most of the other legions don't. At least the fans seem to like flexing the legion culture from the days of old, from the Horus Heresy, right? There's a lot, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of characterization that went into the legions, and to a degree, I think there's some good merit there for that kind of characterization, right? But word bearers are unique in that they're all in. All in on the profane and the cursed. Assassinator69 says, I'd love to start converting models, but it's really intimidating to chop up your minis. Can be. Definitely can be. You have to be willing to accept a certain amount of sacrifice for the pursuit of progress. I think that's the best way to think about it. You gotta psych yourself up, be brave, and be prepared you might be ruining something. But you could also be making something really special. And I think that's what makes, well, in part, that's what makes converting kit bashing so satisfying. Maybe not kit bashing. Well, there's like a scale of complexity between, I think conversions, most people would agree, are a rung above kit bashing, typically. I think kit bashing implies just non-destructive. Or kit bashing, it can be non-destructive, but I suppose conversions they must be destructive to a degree. Maybe that's a good way to think about it. Mixing the Vallejo black with the Mechrite, we're getting more of that matte finish on these panels because of the Vallejo paint. Francois says, I'll be using Cyberite Green, Baharat Blue, and Blue Horror for my Gengar spots, as it's going on a Yandon Yellow and Blue Phantom. Interesting. If it's just for heraldry and patterning, I think the color choice is free reign for the most part, but I've noticed if you're going for the coconut crab gradient that is a result of those dots, then I think the color choice matters. You're looking to bridge colors. But, like I said, if you're just doing a heraldry, just adding some visual interest by creating some patterns, I think any colors will suffice. Fascinator says that's good philosophy. Good philosophy, to be frank. Ah, well. Sometimes I surprise even myself. Guess it depends how shiny we want the armor. Well, I want him to look pretty G'd up, you know? I want this guy to be in his Sunday best. Lorgar's gotta be in his Sunday best. He's always going to church. Mikkel Chaney, welcome to the stream. Mikkel says, custom Primarch? Ah, it's Lorgar. Indeed, indeed. Well, technically it's a model called Suvarnael from Artel W. But I do think it is rather apt. We do have a cooler head option. Maybe we'll, you know what, we're painting armor, so maybe I'll switch the headpiece here. Maybe that makes more sense to paint all the armor together. And now look at him, way cooler. Look at this cool guy. And then you don't have to worry about painting faces. Amazing. Though for Lorgar, I do like the demon flex, you know? He's gotta proudly display his transfigured status. You know that the mortal followers would just cream their jeans, right? Seeing Lorgar walking around with his demonic visage, his crown of horns. They'd be moved to tears immediately. Now, I'm supposed to be painting Tyranids at the moment, gearing up for that mini wargaming narrative campaign. But this model came my way, so it felt only right. You can't just deny a Primarch painting, you know, opportunity. That would be rude. I think we gotta expand that band. Or maybe straighten it up. Not quite liking it. Probably get some brighter colors here, a gradient down to the dark armor color down there. And maybe do a bit of an inversion on the opposite side. Try and figure out what looks good as we go. TC, welcome to the stream. TC says, hey, as someone who kind of wants to paint this guy and maybe run it as Abby stand-in, which version do you recommend to pick up? Well, I would first recommend you use my RTLW affiliate link, pinned in the stream chat. But which model would I recommend to count as Abaddon? Let's go to the homepage and take a look. I would recommend... Let me filter by newest, because I think there's a few options. Yeah, if you're counting that as Abaddon, I don't think you want the wings. I think you want an option that has probably the sword. Unfortunately, after looking at the model, I don't think you have the warp bolter option on the book hand. I think it's on the same hand as the sword, which is unfortunate for Abaddon. Maybe you could, you know, count the book as his ranged weapon, as Abaddon's ranged weapon, right? Just say it's magic. Just to use your imagination. He's casting psychic bullets. But the Suvarnail Blessed version has the Iron Halo and also the sword. I don't know if you want... Well, like, Abaddon typically is given rules so that he has all of the marks, the blessing of all 4 Chaos Gods, right? So this model nicely reflects that with the... what are these? These little spirits, right? You got these Tzeentch and Slaanesh on the Iron Halo, and you have like a Nurgle and Bloodletter on the base. So it does serve adequately well for a counts as Abaddon. He's a bit big compared to even... I have a size comparison at the end of my unboxing video. And I compare him to Guilliman and the Lion, and you can see he's a bit bigger than even Guilliman. Slightly taller, but definitely thicker. And if I recall correctly, Abaddon is a bit smaller than Guilliman, so there is a bit of a... it's just something you have to accept, I guess. You know, you have to kind of like swallow that. Be like, yeah, he's a bit extra swole with chaos powers for Abaddon. But you know what? Same size base, so maybe it's all in the wash, right? That was a really long-winded way of answering your question, TC, but I hope that answered your question. Tramari says, think Lorgar still has gold trim or silver like the rest of his Legion. It's tricky. It's tricky. It seems to me GW would want their centerpiece characters to match their Legions for the most part. Angron's a bit of an exception, but he's barely in his armor, right? He didn't repaint his armor to match his Legion, the way his Legion repainted after the Horus Heresy. But Morty seems to, at least in Games Workshop's depiction. I would like to think Lorgar would be down with the repaint, right? He was part of their apotheosis in a much more direct and complicit way than Angron or Morty was for their legions. So I think he'd be proud to wear the new colors. It's kind of funny how all the legions that were big into the Chaos Soup repainted their colors during the Horus Heresy. or after the Horse Heresy, when you look at them in 40k relative to how they looked in the Horse Heresy. Right? Feels a bit intentional the Dark Angels have a recolor. Just to feed the meme. I tell you, sometimes sometimes I hate the meme culture. Sometimes it just feels to me that often a fair amount of like misinformation is spread because of just memes and jokes. TC says, that shouldn't be an issue. He wouldn't see competitive play. I just call it a disadvantage. It did answer. Thank you. Oh, well, awesome. That is great. Yeah, compared to how GW usually paints their word bearers, I prefer more of a maroon, a more burgundy or a scab kind of color rather than the red. There's just a lot of red Chaos Space Marines. That primary red, like World Eaters are in the primary red. Red Corsairs are in the bright red. Crimson Slaughters in the bright red. So I prefer Word Bearers to be a bit more of a dark scab color. A dried blood or maybe like a dark sort of red wine color, leaning a bit more towards purple, but still on the red side of the scale. Dr. Pepper color, says Francois. Yeah, I think so. Kind of like a Dr. Pepper. Tramari says, I do have the idea of a word bearer's warlord blessed with one mark of the gods having the silver trim match the god. Red for Khorne, pink for Slaanesh, green for Nurgle, and blue for Tzeentch. Interesting. There's a lot of colors to balance, though, on a single guy. I mean, out of context, that sounds like it could be applied to this model, but you have much more surface area, too. And space on the model with these little avatars all over the base. On something as thin as trim, I imagine it'd be harder to execute. Yeah, personally, I prefer the silver trim for word bearers over the gold. I think in most cases I prefer silver trim, honestly. Maybe like Black Legion. Black Legion and Iron Warriors, I guess. You want to keep your more gold trim, but... Actually, you know what? For Iron Warriors, I just want them in Mark III. That's all I want. Give him that old school, you know? Give him that heavy industry look. Apologies for the upskirt here, guys. But we gotta apply a little bit of paint. Tramari says, like colored washes to tint the silver is what I mean. Okay. That does make it a bit easier if you have some glazing action going. I guess if there's one area I don't particularly love the design of, it would be the shoes. I mean, that being said, I don't really have any suggestions, but I'm not especially fond of the look. Okay, what do we want to do with the shoulder pads? We have these hard seams, which we probably want to highlight. So we'll have light area, we'll have a gradation from dark at the trim to light. Dark, light, dark. Maybe. Decisions, decisions. So let's try this. Hopefully it's not too thick. We'll just spread that around a little bit. Let's try mixing in some Kislev flesh. Tramari says, I'm just curious if there are more splinter warbands from word bearers that worship a singular god, like the Sanctified for Khorne. Almost certainly. I don't see why there wouldn't be. That is something I wish the rules were better suited to represent. Mono marking, creating a legion dedicated in service to a particular god, used to be something that was accounted for by the rules. That would give you a little bit of a reward for that dedication. You know, the underglow you often see on Chaos Space Marines, on characters like Abaddon, Typhus, you know, these characters that have an underglow underneath their helmets from their Terminator, I guess, collar, or this piece of the armor. The name escapes me. Is a tricky effect that I would like for this guy to maybe have. I'll consider it. But even with an airbrush, I'm often not pleased with the look I often see being executed. It's because you're spraying color downwards, whereas light should be coming from inwards, right? So I don't think one can just simply, you know, blast light in and behind the head and make it look like it's illuminating. I think that shoulder pad's looking pretty decent. I think once a wash goes on, it'll tie everything together, I think. So we got some leather straps on the Vim braces. Oh, like, what is this? Two tiers of plate. So now the fear with everything I'm doing here is that I'll nicely create these gradients just like how I want them. And then when it comes time for all of these runes, the game plan is to use white ink, thin it down with some flow improver, and probably go over it with Hexwraith Flame, like I do on my Chaos Space Marines, but I don't know how that's going to affect the model. Because these runes have much more of a tighter density than the decals I usually apply. So it'll be a bit of an experiment. He's, right now the model's been lightly glued. Well, I hope it's lightly glued. The intention is to remove it once it comes time to do the base. I just wanted a handhold for the bulk of the buildup. Okay, for now let's pop off this head and just apply some base color to the armor. I mean, what's interesting is looking at the sample paint job, they've left the interior here all black, and I don't know if I like that look necessarily. Let's just make it all red. I feel like on the headpieces you have those soft seals by the neck where it connects to the armor. I feel that should be black so it stands out. So it's easily readable. Northern Exile, welcome to the stream. Good to see you, buddy. What are we painting? We are painting Suvarnael. This is a Artel model that happens to be well suited as a particular Wordbearer's Primarch. Some may say. So it's quite the painting treat. Man's Many Shadows, welcome to the stream. Yep, Lorgar. Well, I'll be counting him as Lorgar. Officially, I don't believe he is Lorgar. Officially, he goes by the name of Suvarnael. But I mean, when you look at this guy, especially with the other head options, where is that demon head? I mean, I just feel like it's so apt for Lorgar. I mean, it's almost perfect. He's got his 4 Chaos God avatars on his base, on the Iron Halo, and I think the weapons that I have here are the ones you would use for a Lorgar. You got a book and a mace that has a particular aesthetic. I just think it's an awesome miniature, to be honest. Quite the painting treat. Man's Many Shadows says hello. Okay, I'm going to switch his head there because we're painting armor colors, so I think we'll leave the demonic head off for now. I'm going to bust out our Mechrite Red, jam with this for a bit. We're basically like Bob Rossing it here. And you guys can't see my palette, but it's a bit of a party. A bit of a party with all these different paints. So you got Mechrite Red, classic paint. With a bit of Screamer Pink. And then for the brighter colors, I'm just mixing in some, I think it's Kislev Flesh. Yeah. Yes, it is. And then for the darker values, I have actually Vallejo's black. Man's Many Shadows asks, is it a 3D print or can you get it physical? You can get it physical. The link I've pinned to the chat will take you to the Artel W store. That's my affiliate link. So if you buy stuff from them using my link, I think I get like 5 pennies. But more importantly, it lets them know I sent you. Because Artel was kind enough to send me this model. Which I am super appreciative of. I like their stuff. I like their stuff. Northern Exile says, we need to chat about your camera setup. I want to do better painting streams. Sad face. We can definitely chat about my camera setup. However, it's not particularly fancy. I just use my cell phone, to be honest with you. I've found that lighting is a bigger... I find lighting is a better thing to focus on if you have to choose one, a high-quality camera or high-quality lighting setup. A high-quality camera will still look shitty, will still look pretty shitty if you have poor lighting. So I think lighting is more important. In my opinion, this is what I've found through experimentation. So we're gonna mix in some Kislev flesh. I think you want the top ridge here to be brighter. And I want it to darken as it goes down towards the bottoms here. However, I hope I'm not applying this paint too thickly. Like I said earlier, this model has a whole bunch of small little runic markings, and part of me is a little concerned that I might be clogging up those details. We'll have to see. Might just be the water in the paint, but might be in for some surprises. Northern Exile for 5 British pounds. Says 1 p.m. my time tomorrow then. I'll be lurking for the stream, painting in a bit myself. Thank you for the super chat, Northern Exile. You didn't have to do that, but it's very much appreciated. And yes, Northern Exile and I will be having a chat for a collaborative video, which will be debuting on his channel. Based on, I think, power levels? Maybe? It should be fun, regardless. Something for you guys to look forward to. I'll definitely make a community post when that gets published on Northern Exile's channel. Man's Many Shadows says it's a really good mini. Yeah, if you're referring to this guy here, I think he's great. I have an unboxing video on the on my channel, which you could check out if you want to see a bit more of the model and how it goes together, pre-assembly. And I think there's there's definitely a size comparison at the end of that video, where we compare him to his other brothers on 60mm bases. And Lorgar is no longer the one to be intimidated, let's say. You know, he's had his glow up. He's grown swole with the chaos soup. He's just been lifting weights and praying, probably. And now he's pretty big compared to... He's just smaller, or he's just like a touch taller than Gilliman by the look of it in the comparison, but he's definitely got more volume to him. Which I think is tasteful enough for this interpretation, right? Because he is, well, I would be, you know, counting him as a sort of transfigured Lorgar, right? Sort of how Abaddon's been enhanced and bolstered by the blessings of the Chaos powers. So too has Lorgar, and you would assume to a bigger degree, obviously. It's a Primarch. Get out of here, Abaddon. Look, Abaddon's a cool guy, okay? I want what's best for Abaddon. Actually, on that topic, Northern Exile had a video that came out earlier this week about that very topic, which I wholly agree with. Remedying a Black Legion. Yeah, Abaddon gets a bad rap because of memes too. It's not his fault, it's the writer's fault, guys. You have to understand. Northern Exile says GW not understanding 40k lore power levels. Yeah. Exactly. There's ripe ground to tread on that topic. Tramari says, gotta bounce, need to shop. Well, you take care, Tramari. Thanks for stopping by. Is this trim? It is trim. We got these circles on his arm, and I'm wondering if I can make him stand out a little bit more by breaking up the gradient so they kind of read more as distinct panels. You know, the surface is literally broken. So I think the light and how the armor is rendered would be broken as well. I'm not hating the overall readability. This shoulder, it's pretty flat. We gotta do something here. Crotch plate needs some attention, of course, and the backpack. And the back of this leg is basically not painted at all. That's okay. This is a model I don't want to rush. I thought about doing a video, a start to finish video on painting the model, and then, you know, having a spin job at the end with some cool music or whatever, but I'm actually in the middle of a Tyranid arc as it relates to like the hobby as a whole, but I'm making an exception for this model because it's a special case. It's a special case. Matthew Gordon just subscribed. I noticed a few of those other Jesus, what is that even called? Streamlabs, that's what it's called. Streamlabs alerts. I missed a couple others, but look, anyone who has subscribed, it's greatly appreciated. Know that, I know. Okay, let's just water down our red and black mix, and let's just get some color on here. Even if it's a little thin on the coverage, we just want some color. Just something to work with, something we can build off of. Yeah, this is in and around the color that I want. And I think once the wash goes on, it'll darken it just a touch, add a bit of contrast as well, and then it'll be good for those glowing elements. I actually really dig the backpack of this model. There's something very, very satisfying about it. Just a classic backpack. No wings here. God, I hate how GW can. It feels like they must. They're compelled. They're compelled by powers beyond them to add wings to every Primarch, including Gilman and the Lion. Like, why? Why must they have wings? I don't know, it feels a bit hashtag cool for me, you know. I remember in my youth designing characters and be like, this character would be sick if he had wings. And I can't help but connect that energy to Gilliman and the Lions' winglets on their backpacks. But not this guy. This guy's he's all class. Look at this backpack. Okay, let's darken up the, I don't know what to call this, hood? Some sort of power armored hood. That is probably too thin. Probably too thin. As the paint runs everywhere. Look, this is how the magic happens. You guys are getting a behind the scenes look at how the goose is cooked. Just gonna mix a bit more paint and then we'll give that another attempt. Let's try it on this side. Okay, closer to what we're looking for. Definitely a bit more pink than I would like. Yeah, so ideally I want a value change from the top of the model to the bottom. So those round areas of the backpack, like around the nacelles or the main body, let's say, really sells the difference in shape as it darkens, right? The material would darken as it bends around and no longer catches light. I guess one thing to keep in mind is there's this giant flaming iron halo to go on top, which, given my color scheme, would probably be glowing like a hex flame, a hexwraith flame color. I might have to make an exception for that, because there's going to be a lot going on. You have this blue Zinch spirit, pink Slanesh spirit also, and then a bright green flame in the middle that might not look good. I don't know. We'll have to see. Now we're sort of a... It's not a dry brush necessarily, but it's similar. It's like a heavy... It's like a wet brush, but with a dry brush technique. Just to get a bit more value built up quickly. I think we do want to brighten up this this intake fan. I'm gonna mix in a bit more Mechrite red. Let's see where that lands me. Okay, that should tone things back a bit. These should be picked out. We'll see how it looks once it dries. Well, look at that. The armor is coming together. Okay, I think after this, the back of these legs are done, or built up at least a little bit, and this front panel will probably give everything the armor wash. And then from there, it's just those character building elements for the armor, like edge highlighting and scratches, and then effects like the runes, but that's a little much for one stream. We'll see. John Adam, welcome to the stream. John Adam says, are you ever going to update the battle tracker application? No. There's not really any plans, if I'm being honest with you, John Adam. If I recall correctly, the battle tracker application was built for 9th edition's mission structure, which I don't know if 10th edition supports easily, which is sort of why I just ended up not continuing it, basically. Tramari says, hey, I'm back. Welcome back, Tramari. And John Adams says, that's okay. Thumbs up. Yeah, with that Goonhammer app, I think it's a Goonhammer app, the Tabletop Battles one for Android. I think it's on iPhone as well. I just found there was not really a need to continue making a scoring system app for PC, which was kind of like a niche use case for score tracking anyways. I think such an app on mobile devices is just more convenient for more people. Let's get a bit more of Screamer Pink in the mix. Though speaking of apps, I am tickled by another project. And I think this would have to be a web-based application. But I think there's enough data points now, speaking to 40K 10th edition detachments, that you could, in theory, develop a quiz that you could input your faction's details and characteristics, and I think it could probably spew out the detachment pretty easily with the appropriate mechanics that are flavorfully suitable. There might be a bit of a hang-up with determining potency, but I think if you rank order mechanics, you could probably kind of like just use an algorithm to pick and choose and not exceed the overall power level. And I think you would do a pretty good job at creating mechanics that were flavorful, right? Like I'm thinking for like homebrew factions or chapters, right? I think you'd get some really fun, flavorful stuff. Of course, just for narrative and open play purposes, but the idea does tickle the brain. Because as you're starting to see more detachments come out, and like I think Warhammer Community announced every quarter they're going to be adding just more detachments to factions, right? you're starting to see a lot of... Like, the design space is only so big. Well, within the scope they want to reach out into, right? So you're starting to see a lot of overlapping systems, right? Yeah, it is just a fun idea. It's not something I'm pursuing. John Adams says, ITC, yeah, so yours being desktop was nice as I don't have one. Now that I think about it, Tramari says, now that I think about it, collectors like myself are a lot like Trazen. Man, I got problems. Well, you know, you also have a lot of stuff, so that's something. That's something. I'll be honest, my lore familiarity around Necron characters like Trazen is pretty thin. Pretty thin. It'd be a bit kind of... Part of me wishes I glued this hand in place just to make it easier to paint. How does he turn the pages of his book? That is the question, chat. Carries a giant book with him into battle. Can't turn the pages. Okay, let's just do this front plate. This big old belt buckle. Guess we want to put a bright color at the edge of the seam, probably. To really sell that metallic look, maybe. Maybe that's what that's about. We're figuring out as we go. Yeah, something sorta like that. I think that looks decent. A decent belt buckle. I think this is all cloth, all this stuff. Tramari says he literally collects everything like a hardcore GW fan. Interesting. John Adams says, I think an app where you give it crusade lists and it will spit you out a match and some lore would be cool. Then the more you play, the more it builds with how the game's been playing. Yeah, something along those lines would certainly help with managing Crusade. Crusade is just so much bookkeeping. Like, I love the idea. Well, okay, if I say I love the idea of narrative play, it makes it sound like I don't enjoy narrative. I do. I lean more towards narrative than match play, but if Crusade's like your only option, it's either matched play or Crusade, as far as the options GW provides, then it's like, I don't know. I feel like they're just poorly serving narrative play. Like, there should be a mission deck. There should be a matched play pack, or a narrative play pack that isn't Crusade, right? That's just bust open the pack of cards, let's play a game, right? Which I guess you could do with matched play. You just, everyone gets on. If everyone who's participating is on board, you're playing a narrative game, not everyone's bringing crunch hungry lists, then maybe you could just take a match play mission deck and go nuts, but I feel like there's too much baggage tied into matched play at this point. I think it needs like another category. Unfortunately. Yeah, this helmet's definitely got some Mark III design cues. I guess I'm not too fond of the gloves either. I kind of want armored fingers. I don't know about you guys. I feel like your fingers are liable to get damaged. But looking at the sample paint job here, I don't. Looks like the fingers are supposed to be painted like soft seal color. Tramari says, in the Hammer and Bolter animation series, he says this to a Chaos Terminator trapped in one of his collections. I collect them, objects, life forms, moments. It definitely seems like your eccentric kind of character. I don't know what it is. I just never really gravitated towards the Trazian kind of character. Maybe it has to do with my aversion to the meme culture of 40k. There might be an overlap there. An overlap there that's influencing the bias. Okay, we put a nice little gradient on his headpiece. Look at that. Oh, you guys can't see it. It's out of focus and out of frame. Twice as bad. I just want some nice blends on the helmet. Is that so much to ask? You got all this surface area. I feel like it's asking for it, you know? While this is more convenient for me, I feel like it's just making things nearly unreadable for the camera. Okay, I think I can live with this. Let's just bump the brightness up a little bit. Yeah, I like the underlighting you often see for Chaos Space Marine helmets, but I don't know if I'll be doing it on this guy. You know, with all the glowing runes, he's probably going to have enough going on, right? And that will be the rationale I'll use to convince myself not to do it. Tramari says, I just read the most accurate headcanon somebody has about 40k. My personal headcanon for 40k is that the tabletop is just Trazyn moving his diorama around. I guess, yeah, you know what? I'm just not receptive to Trazyn. You know, I like having my dudes and having my dudes go on adventures and encounter tragedies and victories. I think that is rewarding stuff. But look, the Trazyn playing with his toys is certainly a way you could headcanon it, but I feel like that's less satisfying. Kind of reminds me of Smash Bros, funnily enough. Like, I remember being very disappointed, let's say, seeing that, or learning that the lore, the Smash Bros lore was just statues or toys coming to life. At least in the older games. I much prefer the interaction of the characters I care about to be something we get to enjoy. Okay, we'll leave this and start washing because we're almost at our time to wrap up, guys. So we'll wash, and there's not much wash of this left either, so we'll see. We'll apply this custom wash mix to the armor. And it'll get where it gets, and then I'll wrap it up. Ferrari says, oh, well, we can't please everybody. True. This is true. It's different strokes, you know? It's not, I can, if people, you know, are enjoying, you know, it's their hobby. It's their hobby to enjoy. But I derive more enjoyment from having my dudes, from having the game we play on the tabletop to be abstracting the narrative, rather than we are imitating Trazen playing a tabletop game. That just seems way less appealing to me. Okay, let's darken the armor. And pray that we're not ruining it. Well, I think it's working. Surprise, surprise, right? Washes just make things look better. Who would have thought? I do want to try and maximize how it pools, though. Try and leverage that auto shading if we can. Alright, and then for the backpack, let's just load up a bunch of paint. Seems like a lot, but we should be able to spread it around just fine. Is that too much? Maybe. Maybe. Let's see what we can absorb. Well, I do like that Artel seems to be making Primarch models that GW seems to have no interest in making models for. So maybe we'll get a Vulcan at some point. That would be pretty cool. Okay, so let's check for missing spots, which I don't think we have. Ooh, the wash kind of dried gnarly at the back of his leg. Oh, it's not the worst place to have a blemish, to be honest. But the other areas look pretty good. I think it's looking approximately like the rest of the army. I say this not having any reference on hand. It's just my will to believe, which feels appropriate for the word bearers. Feels in the spirit of things. Might have some bad pooling back there if we don't clean that up. Oh, right, and the helmet. Of course. Of course. How could I forget? Adam Robinson says the wash is doing work. Very cool. Yes, it is. And welcome to the end of the stream. We're basically wrapping up. Oh man, this is going to be impossible. We'll just have to hold it. Oh god. Alright, we will chill for a little bit and then wrap up the stream because it'd be a nice little bit of a payoff, I think, to put his head back on his body and, you know, show him off a little bit. Tramari says, think I need to go. It was neat seeing this project. No problem, Tramari. You take care. We're just about to wrap up the stream anyway, so thanks for basically sticking around for the whole thing. Much appreciated. Was there anything happening on the Warhammer community today? Probably not, right? Probably not. Yeah, Hammer and Bolter. Oh no, this is Black Talon, episode 2. Then you got Warhammer Plus stuff. Warhammer TV this week. How We Roll examines Codex Emperor's Children. Jesus. It's like, are they gonna review their own codex? What is this? What kind of critical take are they gonna give? Oh, it's just the best, guys. This codex. It's so amazing. It's like, I swear they did a few unboxing videos too at one point, and I was just like feeling the same kind of energy. Like, what? You're just gonna unbox your own product and get excited? What is this? You're just gonna smell their own farts and like it. Like, I think he is dry enough. I think. Well, and there he is, looking fairly glossy. I was going to say satin, but it's actually looking pretty glossy. Look, I'll be honest, guys, glossier than I would like. Maybe it's because the wash is at its bottom, and sometimes if you don't mix your washes consistently, by the time they get to the bottom, the formulation gets a bit glossier, a bit stronger. But that's where we're wrapping up here. I mean, he's still drying, technically. But I like the color of the armor, so even if he's too glossy, I think the shininess, the roughness, rather, can be modified with the varnish of choice. Yeah, there he is. Look at that, a real sharp boy. A real handsome lad, this Primarch. This counts as Lorgar. Amazing. Alright, that's enough of a rotation. Thanks to everyone who tuned in and shared in the hobby camaraderie. Thanks to everyone who commented, liked, and subscribed, and special thanks to Northern Exile for the generous super chat. And there's the hobby, or the patron wall. With that, I have a Grimdark Therapy scheduled for publish on my channel later this week, probably Friday. And then I'll be collabing with Northern Exile as well, so definitely stuff to look forward to, guys. And I'll catch you